So let's talk about the difference between this team and Patriot teams of past, because at 0-2, we did not think for 1 second that this was going to be the team, or we did not think the team was going to be here. Well, CeCe did, but you did, Nick. Where does this Patriots team differ from other Patriots teams in the past?
Well, this team, it's very different because it's not a balanced team, all right? They have two of the best kickers ever since Belichick's been there, regardless of who they are.
Yeah.
Punter and kicker. That's a part of the game that Belichick spends a lot of attention to. So he typically always has, since he's been in New England, a left-footed kicker, which makes it harder to return. He's typically the only left-footed kicker. Carolina has one in Mike Pilardi. I know Mike because I coached him in high school. But
you're talking about their punter?
Their punter, yes.
Punter, yes.
So typically, because the ball spins the other way, the chances of creating turnovers in field position, that increases. But what we're not used to seeing is a defense not in the top 15 in the NFL. Typically, they're in the top 10 in all the major categories. If you look at defensively this year, what are they doing? Scoring defense and red zone. Those are the only two that they are in the top 10. So they've been like, wow, that's kind of odd. Yes, this is an offensive-dominated team. Now, their offensive personnel is not the personnel that they had in 2007, where their defense was better, their offense was off the moon. I mean, they were that good that year with Randy Moss. They still didn't win the Super Bowl. So this year's team, not like 07, but this is an offensive-dominated team. They don't turn the ball over. They're going to try to control the clock through the short passing game. They don't have the most talented receivers, but how they utilize them, how they get matchups, and the first 3 Super Bowls, Tom Brady, New England was not dependent upon Tom Brady to be great.
Not at all.
Right now, Tom Brady cannot afford to take a hiccup. He can't take a breath, because if he does not play great, this is just an average football team. We talked about all season about Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, their lack of personnel. If they didn't have Tom Brady, we would be talking about the same thing with New England. And in the National Football League, when you have a quarterback that's special like that, it really erases a lot of the warts, a lot of deficiencies that you have in other areas. But as we saw on Sunday, what's the constant? Bill Belichick and how they attack situational football. They will always be experts at that. And this team is no different than all the other teams in that aspect.
So the last point is the key point. The one thing, aside from Tom Brady, that has been the constant for 16 years, and even Brady, by the way, his name's been the constant, but his play has not. As CeCe mentioned, first couple Super Bowls, Tom Brady was statistically an average quarterback, an 86 rating, both of those winning years.
Yes.
It was, as CeCe mentioned, the Randy Moss year that really changed his statistical profile and the way we look at Brady as the gaudy regular season numbers. But the one real consistent has been the Pats will never beat themselves. The Pats will get 2 or 3 wins a year because the other team cannot execute end of half, end of game, timeout management, 2-point conversion decisions, challenge management.
Right.
And the Pats are, as they're not perfect at that because no one is, but they're the best in the league in those critical coaching decisions, the things that I want the MIT guy for, to telling the coach, here's when you go for 2, here's when you use your timeout. Belichick doesn't need that. Belichick's got that guy in his own head. That's been the...
Well, he's from Wesleyan. That's just like MIT.
Oh, it's close enough.
Right?
There you go. So the difference between this Pats team and Pats teams in years past, though, is talent. And Pats teams in years past, the players, I know from talking to Chris.
Yes.
Because back when I was doing local radio and the Pats had no idea what I was talking about, Chris was still doing national television, and they absolutely knew what Chris was talking about. And one thing Pats players would say to Chris or other people in the spotlight is, you guys give all the credit to the coach and the quarterback. We got other damn good players on this football team. Early in the run, Richard Seymour, a fringe Hall of Fame resume, guy that they traded a couple first-round picks for. Wes Welker, who once he got there, played as well as a slot receiver's played in the modern NFL. The only guy that really got credit for being a superstar, the only guys, have been Moss and Gronk.
Yes.
Two guys who are so physically imposing, it's undeniable. So in years past, we've disregarded the fact that McGinnis and Vrabel and Ted Johnson were a great linebacking
Yes, and
core.
Ty Law.
Disregarded
Yes.
the secondary. Disregarded Matt Light as the left tackle. That Corey Dillon had a 1,600-yard season. But they don't have those guys this year. This year, the talent deficit is a real thing.
Yes.
It's the big difference between this Pats team and years past, and it's why, in addition to my worry going into the year about Brady's age, that I was skeptical of him because, as CeCe mentioned, if the 40-year-old quarterback has a hiccup, they don't have the overwhelming talent that they'd had in years past to make up for it.
Which is what we've seen. He doesn't play well for 3 quarters. They don't play well for 3 quarters. He comes back and has a great fourth quarter. They play well in the fourth quarter and they win, which is how they've won a lot of games. But if I'm hearing both of you correctly, it kind of sounds like you're saying, sure, the talent level's not there, but maybe the talent hasn't mattered. Maybe it doesn't matter what kind of talent they have. The fact that they are so great in playing situational football and that they have a coach who prepares them for anything that happens over the course of the game is the one constant that makes this team so successful. And it almost doesn't matter if maybe that 07 team was a heck of a lot more talented than this team, because look where they're sitting right now in the driver's seat. And I know that you don't like their talent depth right now, but they still put themselves in a position with all the injuries this season and with the talent they have to do whatever they want this season.
Well, this is the thing, though, Jenna. After last season, they won the Super Bowl. They went out and traded for Brandon Cook. I didn't tell them they needed another wide receiver. Now, this was before that they knew that Edelman was hurt. So they knew they were getting Gronk back, Brandon Cooks, Edelman. So they were trying to upgrade their talent.
They signed Stephon Gilmore.
Stephon Gilmore signed him to a huge contract from Buffalo. These are things that they typically don't do. So, no, he knew that they needed talent. And then now that they've had injuries, Gilmore hasn't been the player. It's just the coaching has taken over. They are talented players, though. And that's what the players have hated for years, that they're still talented players. These are still quality NFL players, but we never give them credit. Belichick's not playing in the game. When Juju Schuster broke away at the end where the game could have been over, he didn't tackle him.
Tomlin would have tripped him, but he didn't tackle him.
Yeah, if he was on the other side, yes. But so it's easy to point to the coach. It's easy to point to Tom. Tom drove him down the field, but the defense won the game. We act like Tom Brady won the game. No, he didn't. That team won the game. And the syncness between the offense, the special teams, and the defense, those are things that are consistent. And when you put talent in there, because talent is still critical.
And here's the thing. So, Jenna, you're right that it, in large part during the regular season, doesn't. If you have a quarterback playing the way Brady is, a coach that prepares you the way Belichick does, and you happen to play in the AFC East, that you are in the regular season, you don't need overwhelming talent. But what did we see in their biggest game of the year, the game that most closely resembled what a playoff game would resemble? In their most important moment, who did they go to? Their most talented offensive player, Rob Gronkowski, every play down the field. Because that's how you have to beat other really good teams. And what we've seen, by the way, in the last 2 Super Bowls that they've won against teams, in my estimation, with more talent in Seattle and Atlanta, they were outplayed in both of those games for 3 quarters, and then 1 or 2 breaks go their way. Other teams starts to realize, oh, God, that's Brady and Belichick on the other side. They change it up just a little bit. Brady and Belichick have the calmness about them, and they take advantage. I think they've outscored their opponent in the fourth quarter of their last 2 Super Bowl wins, I want to say by 24 points. They have dominated those games at the very end after being somewhat dominated throughout the first 3 quarters. So the talent level, they're going to be able to get to the postseason, and now this year, a bye, with whatever talent they have because of the coach and quarterback. It matters come a few weeks from
I'm going to give you a small thing. Belichick always defers the kickoff when they win. And the reason why he defers, he knows that football fans traditionally have been drinking for 3 or 4 hours before the game. Now, this is how precise he is. He knows they've been drinking, know they've been celebrating. So at halftime, the first 5 minutes after halftime is the least amount of crowd noise. So he wants the football when the least amount of crowd noise, and also after halftime where he's made adjustments. So those are the things that have been constant through the 5 Super Bowl champions, even the 2 that have lost. These things would make New England really, really special, their regimented style.
I mean, when you say attention to detail, that's about as detailed as it gets for someone and for a head coach who's got so much to worry about to also focus on something like whether they take the ball or not at halftime. All right. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.